My mouth looks okay because I just scarfed down half a donut. Happy Thursday, good people. Hope y'all are doing well. I am so excited for today's conversation. Men, their emotions, and their mental health, right? So this morning, about an hour or so ago, I posted today's 31 Days of Power piece, which is Unpopular Facts about men and their mental. So Chris is coming in. For those of you all that aren't aware, this is coming from the 31 Days of Power, a simplified approach to everyday mental health. Good morning, therapist Allison. Good morning, Vic. Good morning, Vic again. Good morning, Mom. Hey, it's so good to see y'all. Chris, good morning, my bro.
What up, bro? How you doing?
Hey, I'm all right, man. Thank you so much for taking some of your precious time to have this needed conversation with me today, man.
It's all love, man. I appreciate the opportunity. What
Yes,
up,
sir. How's your
RJD?
week going?
Hey, it's amazing, man. No complaints. Blessing and progressing. I was in Orlando for Sunday through Wednesday, then back in the city getting to it. So
Nice.
it's been amazing. How about yours?
Hey, you know what, man? It's been good. It's been up and down from a standpoint of just like this week I got a chance to see just how the weather can play such a toll on our emotions, man. And just that feeling, right? You got to push past. It literally felt like pulling teeth some days this week, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's good though, man. Thank you so much for asking. Let's jump into this, Chris. And I felt like you were the perfect person to have on this call. Obviously, I had you on earlier. Last week we talked about, productive ways to release pain. But man, we got to get into this, man. This was day 27 from my book, The 31 Days of Power, talking about men, their emotion, and mental health, and these
Yeah.
unpopular opinions. What I like to call facts. I like to call them facts because I feel like each one of them holds truth, man. But you are somebody who not only on the emotional intelligence side gets it, but you are intentional when it comes to getting it and helping other men get it, right? Because it's real easy for us to talk. We got a lot of cats that serve the women, and I'm not taking anything away from them. But at the same time, I was like, for the brothers that need to serve the brothers so that we can be better brothers and better men, bro, like, I feel like it's a shortage, man, but you are leading the way in this. And I needed you here for this convo today, man.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. And RJD, if you still on, bro, definitely request to go live. We was trying to have a couple men up in
Oh,
this
definitely,
conversation
man. We
today.
could have some brothers swing in, man. I'm game for that, bro. So let's do it. But man, let's dive into it, man. The first point that I put out for today's conversation piece was this idea that you don't have to live detached, right? And I know that traditionally men for a long period of time have been raised to remain detached from emotions and from their vulnerability, from their feelings and all of that, right? And so, man, what is your I don't even want to say what is your take or your experience, but just speak some life into that area from just all the work that you've been able to do and the people that you've been able to help with this.
As far as using detachment as a form of coping.
Well, as a form of as a form of coping, but I think just that traditional teaching of like this is how it's supposed to be, like you are supposed to be detached as a man, you know?
Uh, Man, that's crazy, man. That's a very deep-rooted stigma. I was with a cousin in South Bend recently, and while we were down there, he was like, "Yeah, we can go kick it at my dad's crib." And my whole life, I've never known him to know his father. So
Hmm.
when we had went, I was like, "Yeah, bro, yeah, bro, I would love to meet your dad and go kick it and all the other stuff like that." So we go over there, and we just kicking it and just chilling. And he's extremely old, probably in the 70s or something like that.
Hmm.
And and just randomly, he just kind of looked at my younger cousin and was just like, I'm glad that you came today because I hadn't been able to reach you. I hadn't, you hadn't been answering or calling, and you never know what a person's going through. Then he kind of just froze for a minute, and he started making like these facial expressions
Mm.
that and I'm sure you can identify when a man is really trying to express something, but it's like he
Yeah.
feels like if he releases or something like that, that makes you weak or less than or incompetent or beta or whatever it is. And like you could just see it. He was just, I mean, literally just making these crazy facial expressions. And then he just bust out into tears.
Wow.
Um, and when me and my cousin left, we was having a conversation about this, and I was like, the whole idea of therapy, mental well-being, things of that nature, talking
Hmm.
about your past, getting past your past, unpacking your past, processing your past memories and all that stuff like that. That's relatively new. We should be grateful that we grew up in this particular generation. But
Yeah.
you know, even my mom's generation, and then when we go even higher to what his, you know, father was, 'cause his father was way older, like 70 or something. Like it, that expressing your emotions, talking, even just amongst men, but
Yeah.
publicly, that wasn't the thing, man. It was silent. It was, you just had to just, we
Jay,
really didn't have the sorry to talk, but we
no, you
really didn't
good.
have the privilege of even identifying our emotions and shit. You feel me? We was trying to
Definitely.
survive. So,
Definitely. Hey,
yeah,
Jay Phil, I
it's
see you
rooted
in
in
the
us.
space. My boy Jay Phil is in here too. Jay, if you at any point in time want to drop a request and come on in this convo with us, man, you are more than welcome to, bro. Man, a phenomenal mental health professional, out on the East Coast as well, bro. So yeah, no, I love that you stated that. So I did a podcast conversation around this, like yesterday. It's coming out tomorrow, but I talked about how like my granddad, like, so my granddad grew up in born and raised in Possum Trot, Mississippi, right? So, you know, down in the South, man, son of slaves, got a chance to see one of his brothers lynched before he moved up to Chicago. And I mean, my granddad came up to Chicago with I believe, a third grade education. And basically, all his life, he was a handyman. He knew how to use his hands. And he, he was born in an era where men, their job was to just provide, right? Just provide, and that's it. And the emotional aspect, the conversation from, hey, you know, how are you feeling, son? It wasn't that. So my dad and my uncles, they weren't brought up being able to like really identify or express those emotions, right? And so, man, it's such a real thing because, like you said, to the generations before, it was provision, 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 but no actual clue on how to deal with the issues of the heart, or just simply to understand that it's okay. Like, and we're not just talking trauma, right? We're not just talking like bad stuff. Like, we're literally like, man, you be ridiculed for smiling too long. You're like, for being happy,
Yeah.
for being excited, unless it was sports, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. So I thought that was interesting that you put that out there, because I feel like it has been a generational thing, but I do feel like we have an opportunity to break this as well.
Facts.
Um, one of the things I said was, as men, we got to understand that we can't find wholeness while being detached. Man, what's your take on that, bro?
You can't find wholeness while being attached. I agree completely because and I've shared this story. I think when you were on my podcast, Rising Tide. I definitely appreciate you coming out.
No, absolutely, man.
Uh, but when I did the self-authoring with the Jordan Peterson, where it had you
Yeah.
go back and process your past memories, and I had told you that, you know, since I was 18, smoking weed extremely heavy. And during that time, I had took an 11-week break. So that was like the first time that I had stopped, I guess, using a coping mechanism, although I wasn't consciously trying to cope with it, but nonetheless, it was like numbing and like suppressing the pain and all that. So when I took that break and then, man, went through that, and that was the first time again where I'm actually had to really think back to, damn, what was like my childhood traumas? What was the things that really caused me pain?
Yeah.
And going through that, bro, it's like I wholeheartedly agree with you that you can't find wholeness and while you're detached, because, and I also say that, you know, weed caused me to not cry or like express, I
Mm.
guess, feelings and all that. That's why I said it numbs you. So when I stopped doing that and I went through and started processing everything, man, I
Just
guess
like
I
a
was
rush
get
of emotion.
yes, and it was, I guess, me getting used to the idea of not being detached, you know, so actually
Yeah.
feeling and having to just
Like face to
accept.
face with it. It's something
Yeah.
different. It's something different, man.
But what I
It
can say is that like what Jordan Peterson talks about with the self-authoring, that when you first start, it's a dip, meaning that you get sad for a little bit because you are bringing to mind the worst parts of your childhood, or even really the worst parts of your life, the things that you
hmm
never want to address, that when they actually come to mind, it causes you to just want to escape or want to numb or just
Yeah.
whatever it is. But when it's a small little dip, but bro, if you can just go through that, and like I said, just allow myself to just feel. So just whatever the feelings were that was coming, just embrace them and just
Yeah.
accept them as long as they were there. And then when they wanted to leave, just let them go and all that. Going through that process, bro, I felt so strong afterwards. And that's why I'm just in the process of just, when things want to come, when the feelings want to come, don't try to suck the tears in or
Yeah.
just try to beat your
We're
chest
going
acting like it don't, like
we're gonna
just let
talk
it come.
about that in a second too. I'm gonna dive into that because we got a whole concept about that piece. But before we get there, I want to hop to this next one that I think is so important. And
Shout out to my boy Lou.
you kind of alluded to it. Yo, good morning, good morning.
Hey
You
Lou,
allude,
request to join in, bro. If you want to talk,
yeah,
man, please do.
definitely. Look, and so we're gonna do this. Your feelings don't make you soft. This was the next piece that I put up, right? And I gave a story on the podcast talking about how I know for me growing up, man, being like a hopeless romantic, always hopping from relationship to relationship and all of that, man, like I fell in love real easy. And I remember the labels that were put on when it came to my feelings of love by my guys. Definitely cats I played football with. It was this piece of like, yo, like, oh, you in love, you must be gay. And it was crazy, bro. Like those labels or the idea of being in love made you soft. Or when I was frustrated with something and I was going through depression early and didn't realize it, man, but had those moments where I would just have tears flowing from my face. It's like, oh, bro, you crying, you soft, what's wrong with you? And so, man, I think that we forget that we are human, which means that we aren't exempt from feeling, right? Like we as men are not exempt from feeling, and the feelings that we have and that we embrace don't make us soft.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Actually, when you're expressing your emotions, it's not because you're weak, but it's that actually you're trying to remain strong.
Yeah,
We look at our life expectancy of, especially in particular black men, and, you know, we typically go, a lot of us have heart failure. And a lot of that is because of stress, because we're not
yes,
processing the things that we're going through. And like you said, we're not talking about even the major things that happen to us. We're talking about the little micro things that happen on a day-to-day basis that just stack over time.
yeah, yeah,
And honestly, when we don't really learn to express or just deal with it, or when we just stuff all this stuff inside, it starts like mutating into certain things. So then
that's good.
it gets really hard to even find the root of it. You just find
Yeah,
yourself reacting to a whole group of people, to a whole like just situations. We almost look at it like cookie cutters where, we got all of the stimuli through life, but we just process it through maybe two filters. Like it's either just super extreme to one way or super extreme to the other, and we don't know just even like the gradation of colors that we have. We look at it as like, oh, we can just place it into like 5 or 7 colors, but really the distinctions can go into, I think they said like 7.5 million.
oh
And it's the
wow,
same way with our experiences, but we don't know how to, again, thoroughly process them. We just, it got to be this or this, instead of just being able to. I think they said that I forgot how many actually emotions there are, but there are hundreds or thousands of them. But they say the average person, if you were to say, what emotions do you experience most often, we're only able to like say like 5 or 6 of them. And
mm,
that's a high amount. Most people are able to do like maybe like 3 or 4. But
right,
in actuality, like I said, there are hundreds or thousands of them, but we don't know. And language is really important when it comes to, it's going to impact how we feel about a certain situation. So when we
absolutely,
use certain language that basically in our mind paints a picture of an extreme situation, but
mm-hmm.
that's the only way we do it. It's like, oh, like somebody tells you something, oh, that's crazy. And again, it's just like little blanket statements that we use. But again, you see this in court and all that. It's little distinctions in words that we use unconsciously that creates the picture in the mind that creates the emotion for us.
That's
So if
good.
I
Yeah,
said, you tapped my car, you could probably get just a little incident of us just probably just going like that. Probably even no damage just from me using the word tapped. But if I
mm-hmm.
said you crashed my car, crashed into my car, or totaled my car, you know, and again, it could be the same situation, but I'm using the word, and in your mind, it's going to create just a
Yeah,
more
yeah.
gravity of the situation. And we do that unconsciously, and we make ourselves suffer.
Absolutely. Thoughts become way more intrusive with words sometimes, man. Thoughts become way more intrusive, man. That's great, Chris. Thank you for that. This next component, man, and I know we can speak to this, and hopefully we'll get some brothers on that if they want to jump in and talk experience with this too. You are more than welcome to. I said that your man up moments can lead to a breakdown. And I want to break this down real quick. I said when we take the man up approach, we aren't addressing our pains, traumas, and emotions. When we man up, we're actually suppressing our feelings temporarily and making room for them to lead to major issues later on. And so this has been just me, right? Now, this is my opinion. But with that being said, I do believe that for a long time, to your point, and you kind of started hitting on it earlier, when you get to those spaces where you feel the emotion, but you try your best. Hey, shut up, boy. You better not cry. Man up. And then, like, you're literally struggling to hold it in. And once you're finally able to get control of it and suppress it, you might not see the results of that right away, but over a longer period of time, man, we wonder why so many men struggle in adulthood and adult life when it comes to your point of being able to productively express what they're feeling. And we think that they're just loose cannons, or that, oh, what is, you ain't got no home training, this, that, and the third, you're an animal, you're this, not realizing, man, that in those moments where we had to man up when we were younger, where we should have been able to embrace those feelings, it will lead to a breakdown later on.
I agree. I look at it like the little teapot thing, it just can takes it to just holds in, holds in, holds in, holds in, holds in, then just shoots out with the whole little whistle sound and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how really we can be. And that shoot sound, that shooting out of it, the steam, meaning that it can't hold no more inside, is typically when we have an explosive moment. And unfortunately, that typically tends to sever relationships or opportunities, or and again, that could be, sometimes it can be things in which people can forgive us for and we can forgive ourselves for. Other times, again, it could be completely fatal to a certain situation. So
Yeah.
just learning how to handle it, because life can be challenging. Things happen, but it's more important how we interpret the situation, how we process the situation. Um, and that's why I always encourage people to go back to the childhood, because that's really what programs our unconscious. And
Mm-hmm.
when we get triggered, that's what we're going into, is our unconscious. And
Yeah.
to your point, when we keep things in, keep things in, keep things in, and we explode, that explosion is acting out your childhood trauma. And so the more we're able to just be able to process certain experiences, and the issue with our childhood trauma is that we didn't have the brains that we have now, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that we didn't have the level of intelligence. We didn't, so the conclusions, what we interpreted the situations to mean about those around us, about ourselves, about our future, about our capabilities, about our self-worth, about whatever it is, typically when we come to our childhood issues and all that stuff like that, was extremely faulty. We probably
Mm-hmm.
personalized everything. We probably took responsibility for everything. Probably just made it feel, or just identified as like a low self-worth because of certain things that might have happened to us, or certain
Yeah.
experiences and all that. And that is what drives us when we get into those explosive moments. And like you said, those explosive moments happen as a result of not just communicating on the day to day. So we could be cool for a week, we could be cool for a month or a few months and all that. But then when it comes out, they call it our shadow and all that stuff like that in certain bodies of work. So I agree wholeheartedly with you, brother.
Yeah, man. I think you hit it right on the head. I don't want to add anything else to that. Let me ask you this, because you made mention to it earlier. What's your take on this whole ideology behind alpha and beta males?
Uh,
I got my opinion, but I'm like, let me hear yours first. But I'm gonna just hit back real quick.
to be 100% honest, man, when it comes to alpha and beta males, my perspective on it is just responsibility and duty.
Hmm.
So as an alpha male, I feel like that has to do with just absolute self-control. In Proverbs, it says in the Bible, you're mightier who can control himself than he who can capture a city.
Hmm.
So, social power is one thing, but personal power is really one of the marks of an alpha male. I would also say just self-reliance, personal initiative, integrity, bold, ambitious, generous. And again, a beta male would be, in my opinion, um, and I don't believe that it's just like fixed, I guess, in a say, or permanent. My thoughts would be sometimes people can fluctuate between the two. We
Hmm.
have our spells where we could get into a funk, get down on ourselves, maybe get into some self pity. Maybe we lose our ambition or relationship in, and again, we just go through a little period, maybe months or something like that, where we're just not at our best selves and all that stuff like that. Where I perceive that as being a beta, when you're just not improving, where you're just
Hmm.
trying to be stagnant, comfortable in life, not taking care of yourself, not taking care of those around you, not having that self control, not being able to control your tongue, not being able to control your thoughts. not being able to control your actions and your gestures, your emotional energy, not having a purpose and moving towards your purpose. That is what I would say is the difference between alpha and beta, in my opinion.
Interesting. So for me, it's really weird. Like, I don't know why I've always felt kind of leery, like when I hear people talk about it. But if we were going off the definition that you just gave, I think it's really interesting because I've noticed that it's been thrown out so much in conversation, right? Men use it to describe other men a lot nowadays. But going off the definition that you gave, definitely when you talk about control, what I've noticed is that you got a lot of guys who self-proclaim alphas and they call other men beta, but they carry to that definition of self-control specifically. A lot of the guys that call themselves alphas tend to have or lack self-control, or they have like this skewed ideology of power and dominance. And I think it's so interesting, man, as I hear cats talk about it, because I'm like, man, like I feel like going back to the book of Proverbs too, when you talk about those with a quick tongue, right? Those who feel like they have something that they need to prove. This is where I said I feel like we have a lot of guys who claim themselves to be alphas, but I'm like, man, you really just sound like a child at its core. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but as I'm hearing the terminology used more, I'm always in this space of like, how productive is this when we talk about building our men up, right? Because I think to a degree, and I love what you stated, right? You don't have to stay in that space. So maybe it is just the fact that you carry character traits of both, which aren't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because depending on the space that you're in, you can be a little more apprehensive. Depending on your circumstance, you can deal with, issues that will cause you not to, channel or tap into your purpose or whatever the case might be. So I don't know, man. I just wanted to get your thoughts because I heard you mention it at the top of the convo, and
Well,
I
I
was just
think,
like,
man,
man,
it's like life is about either whether you want your stuff to be an example or a warning. And one thing I like about Proverbs is that they talk, one thing that, is kind of being used in a reverse way is that, back then they used to shame bad behavior to get you
mm-hmm,
to do right. And it's like now they shame masculine behavior to get you to be submissive. And it's like, again, I think it's very productive. I think it's needed because life is about winners and losers. It ain't just, all participation trophies.
mm-hmm,
It sounds good to kind of cope with our feelings and all that, but then when we go out and experience reality, we're going to get hit in the face real hard.
mm-hmm.
So it's good to put that into people's minds, like whether you're going to be an alpha or a beta. Whether you want to just be drifting along and having, to always depend on someone and all this other stuff like that and not take care of your business and not stand up for yourself, not be able to control yourself when you're standing up as well. And when you spoke earlier, I heard a quote that said, being an alpha male isn't about manifesting your anger physically. Being a
Mm-hmm.
alpha male is, again, about self-control and being able to communicate instead of, again, manifesting that energy physically. Because
Mm-hmm.
I heard another thing saying, a man gets mad because he doesn't have the words to express what's on his mind. And I think as men, we got to do a better job of, again, going back to the different colors and how there's really, if you know the distinctions, millions of them as opposed to just 7 that we identify: red, blue, orange, green.
Yeah.
So same thing with our experience. We just got to learn to be able to communicate, get the words that actually accurately describe what we're expressing and all
That's
that,
good.
but then being able to maintain self-control when we're being challenged, when we're being attacked, when somebody else maybe elevates us. We can't use the excuse of that person made me mad. And I'm speaking to myself as well. You feel me? So I don't want people think I'm speaking on like a high horse. This is a daily
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, again, anger does more to the vessel it's stored in than anything it can be poured on. They say,
Yeah.
being angry is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. So, going back to the alphas and betas, I think it's extremely important, but I think that we have to just encourage them more so by example of how to properly be an alpha male and get the misconceptions of, like you said, being an alpha male ain't,
Yeah.
yo, you
I
scared
think
of
it
me.
sounds good to a lot of
Yeah,
people. And so it's easy for them to just throw it out there like, I'm an alpha because it
yeah,
sounds good. Right. But it's like, bro,
facts.
like, do you actually understand the depths of what this means? Right. And to your point, I guess I love that you stated the example aspect because I think that's probably what we've been missing. And maybe that's why I feel the way I do about it, because I'm just like, the cats leading the charge in the conversation a lot of times aren't probably the best representation for it. And that's,
Yeah,
I mean, that happens, man. I think that's the world we live in now too, man. Look, a lot of a lot of people who influence now had no influence before social media was a thing. So we'll just leave that there,
yeah,
right? And so,
yeah. But what I
man, talk
can
to
say is that, like, with the black male image being attacked and tarnished so much, I just appreciate. I try to eat the meat and spit out the bones, as certain people
facts.
say, and all that stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I try to just appreciate the fact that we are getting certain images of intellect and being able to just, again, provide, regardless of if, sometimes their tone or their way of delivering certain messages or whatever it is might be distasteful and all that. Again, with the image of us being so tarnished, um, it could be way, way worse. So I'm just happy to see, the conversation. I'm happy to see people aspiring to, oh, what is an alpha? Damn, okay, I have been beta. Same conversation I had to have with myself. I'm like,
Mm,
oh, you having these conversations with these, or not conversations, but you tended to attract in the past a lot of combative or contentious women, as Proverbs would call them, and all that. And I'm like, okay, well, masculine and feminine energy always has to be present, and they're always in all of us. So who's ever more dominant in one, naturally the other person is going to go to. And I had to be honest with myself. Okay, you've been in feminine behavior. You're comfortable not speaking your truth because you're like, oh, I just don't. I can't deal with the reaction and all this other stuff like that. I don't know what this
mm.
person's going to say. I don't know all these other things. And it's just like, we just have to, I, if it wasn't for the conversation of somebody, being provocative on, whatever it is, like you were talking about. And it's like, if it wasn't for that sparking those conversations, years ago, my mind wouldn't have drifted towards thinking like, damn, okay, nigga, you got to get on your shit. Damn, okay, you are drifting. Damn, you are comfortable. No, bro, you got to
Mm.
be able to get more self-control with your tongue. Ain't no excuses. It don't matter what a person say. Just remove yourself from the whole situation. You chose to be in that situation. Just always bringing the conversation back to me. If it wasn't for certain people having those conversations, I could have continued drifting. So I think it's good to just have the conversation, just because, again, it sparks change in our minds.
Definitely, man. I think, perspective is going to be so important when it comes to really kind of getting to, that greater part of our purpose and where we're supposed to be. Obviously, we can't, there's only so much we can do with what we know, so it's kind of like reading a book, like every book that you read. I love that you said, eat the meat and spit out the bones. That's kind of how it is, man. You might end up reading a book and it's like, yo, this is a great book. Not necessarily everything resonated with me, but overall, I was able to take the message, and move. So
Yep.
I definitely hear you, and I agree, man. That's really good. We're gonna get ready to wrap this up, man. I wanted you to talk on. And so I mentioned one of the points was you got to be able to let go of your ego, right? And this can be. You talked about the daily aspect of controlling emotions, but I know that because I know you and I know your work, ego check comes with that. Ego checking the ego comes with that daily piece. But man, can you talk to us about that though, right? Like because I know with that ego comes a lot of the stigmas that we carry about being able to be free in our emotions, to express ourselves, and to be able to
Yeah.
um to be confident in that. Sorry.
No, you're good. When we lose control, a lot of times that's us in our ego. Person says something, and I remember a couple years ago when I was going to therapy, and I was talking to a hypnotherapist at the time. He was saying, you got this little button inside you that when you feel disrespected, you just like roar, like this
Mm,
lion just comes out of you. And it's just like, that's really just us allowing another person to control us.
mm,
And so that just causes us to just completely lose control, get out of our element. But it
yeah.
should never be, regardless of what a person says, regardless of a person's tone, regardless of a person's gesture. I was reading a book, The Four Agreements, a couple months ago. Actually, it might have even been like 2 months ago. It was relatively recent. But the second agreement is don't take things personal. And that was so impactful to me because it was
Mm,
basically saying on the good side and on the bad side. So it was like when somebody gives you compliments, it's because they're feeling good. They're in a good mood. They're happy. But if they wasn't feeling good, if they wasn't happy, if they wasn't in a good mood, they might, cuss you
That's
out, say
real. That's
something
real.
mean, say something.
Yeah.
So it's like, regardless of what it is, we shouldn't take things personal. That's just when people do certain things, it's just more so a reflection of what they're currently experiencing in the moment. So what I'm learning to do is just give compassion, just trying to, again, instead of, oh, this person's spazzing out, da, 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 and being like, nigga, who the, like,
Right. Right.
instead of just
Right.
having that being the reaction, just sit back and, okay, because again, when we get into those emotional states, we are out of control. So knowing, okay, this person is not themselves. They're going into that unconscious childhood trauma thing we were talking about earlier.
Hmm.
So let me not take the words personally. Let me not take their actions and deeds and all that
Yeah.
personally. Let me not actually feel like that's really what they're meaning or what they really think about me. They're just
Right.
in their feelings. They're just not themselves. When they calm down, okay, how can I help this person? What can I actually do to help this person calm down? Because I'm knowing that this person's hurting. Now, again, it is extremely hard to practice in the moment. Me and my
Hmm.
boy RJD was talking about this the other day. It's extremely hard to practice in
Always.
the moment,
Always.
but nonetheless, it is not a peaceful process, but the result of it will bring you peace.
Yeah.
So that is probably one of my biggest takeaways is just not taking things personal. I was doing a guided meditation one time, and it gave the example of anytime you're in kind of like a contentious conversation or something like that, instead of getting triggered, imagine just like an imaginary just beam of energy surrounding you. And what this beam does is filters people's words. So it basically leaves all the negative emotions outside of the beam. And you just really just get the meaning of what a person is trying to say. And it sounds
Hmm.
kind of crazy to do, but when you do it in your imagination, it really takes the emotional sting out of certain conversations and allows you to just, again, really just see the situation for what it is. Okay, this person
Yeah.
is really just hurting. This person is really just kind of fearful right now. This person may be overwhelmed. Maybe this person's feeling a little insecure or envious. It just gives you greater perspective without you taking on the emotional weight of it. Because as soon
That's
as, again,
dope.
we take the emotional weight, then we feel like we got to retaliate. We got to say something. We got to combat. We got to do all these other things. And that's when we're going to get out of control and typically lose it. So,
Absolutely. I love that you put that out there, man, because I think it does give us a good pause. It interrupts us from what could be. And that interruption is so important because I think we could see a better change when it comes to how we shift the scope and start to communicate. I love that. Chris, man, thank you so much, bro. I wanted to throw out this last point as we close. Um, I said, even as a man, you deserve to be loved and appreciated, whether through your friendships, romantically, or in family. You need love to thrive and to be healthy. And I know, we don't, man, I had a good brother who told me like he didn't hear his dad, like to this day, I think he's never actually heard his dad say, I love you. And I think that's a real thing that we have. And maybe that's another conversation we can come back and have too, I think that's a good one to have when it comes to like being able to express those kind of words, man. And I know we use the term a lot, man. Give people their flowers while they're alive, but as men, how I think that'll be something that we can really focus in on is how can I, as a man, make sure I'm giving you your flowers when it comes to emotionally expressing my love and my respect for you and stuff like that. And so, just as a quick recap, I thought this was important too. I said you are more of a man for acknowledging your feelings and being productive to nurture them for better overall mental health. And man, I think this is going to be so important for us to understand our feelings too, because a lot of times, with what we see from men out here, to your point of having a greater understanding and perspective of why they do what they do or what's taking place, a lot of times, I think we can actually, man, we can dead a lot of the arguments that take place. We can dead a lot of the nonsense that goes back and forth. But there is a willingness personally that comes with being able to commit to doing that though too. So,
facts.
man, any last thoughts you want to leave us with, man, before we get out of here, bro?
Um, you had just touched on it just a second ago about just being comfortable with just expressing love, especially to the same sex. Going back to kind of our conversation when we talked earlier about, the generations before us, it wasn't cool to kind of talk about what you were dealing with, what you were going. It also wasn't cool for a man to be like, hey, bro, I love you, bro. I care about you, bro.
Hmm.
You cool?
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes we have to step outside of what we know. I'm grateful in college. It was probably 10 years ago. I had bumped, shout out to Mr. Lake. And me and my father, like my actual father growing up, we never said, I love you, and really hugged and embraced and all. That just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the culture. Now he expressed love and like it, but it just those words that wasn't. And so like it was somebody else who was like, yo, you not comfortable with a man hug, nigga, that ain't gay. That's just nigga, men
Right,
do this.
right,
Like nigga, if you had a
right.
son, like I look at you as a son, nigga, this is what men do. It's okay to say that's not, and that bro has helped me out so much, and it actually
Wow,
now me and my father tell we should love each other all the time.
wow,
A couple
okay.
of years ago is when I started saying it to my father, and it was kind of weird at first, but now it's just normal. It's normal
Right,
for us to
right.
hug and embrace and all that. But had I not, and that's another thing I want to lead, man, especially our generations, we got to get comfortable with leading when it comes to healing, when it comes to this whole thing
That's
when we're talking
good.
about expressing our emotions and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to be the ones bringing it to the older generation and all that, and letting them know, hey man, this ain't nah, bro. I love you. I'm cool. And like, yeah, making it seem just cool and the norm and acceptable and all that. That's going to
That's
be a lot of
good.
our charge. So that was what I would leave people with.
I love that, man. Thank you for putting that out there, Chris. That's important, bro. And thank you for sharing that experience as well. Because I think that's one that whether a lot of guys know it or not is very common when it comes to like not having that, with their fathers or maybe the man who raised them or their brothers or whatever the case might be. And so being able to learn to say it. And like you hit me here, you hit it right on the head. There might be an awkward period to start it off, but at some point in time, it's normalized, right? And it feels good and it's okay.
You
Man,
should do a
Chris,
talk on that, bro, about just leading when it comes to, if you're the first one in your family doing the healing journey and all that,
that's
because
good. Yeah, I
that's a
like that.
process, bro. And
I like that.
that could be some challenges. So that could be
Well,
a good
definitely
talk.
can. I mean, and so we will do that. We'll definitely set something up for that because I think that actually, what you saying that what it reminds me of, I think, and a lot of people can take from that is that we definitely in church now. You get so many folks who are, oh, you're gonna be the generational curse breaker for your family. You're gonna do, and it's
The
true.
bloodline breaker, yeah.
It's true, but hey, if we real about it, breaking that ain't easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we
Facts.
got we got to be able to talk about that, and we've got to be able to look, just understand the best practices that come with that can help us. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, we'll I'll hit you up, man, so we could definitely set something up around that. Definitely with next month coming up, man. For those of you all that don't know, June is Men's Health Month, and so we got a ton of conversations to still be had, man, and maybe we can get some brothers on to rally in and man, just share the space, man, share the platform, and really just have that convo. Before we get out of here, man, where can people find you? Obviously, they can follow you here. Where can they find the Rise and Tide podcast and all of the other amazing work that you're doing, bro?
Definitely the Rising Tide podcast. You can just check out the McBride Institute on YouTube for all my videos, all my content. Definitely the Rising Tide podcast is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I do lives on Facebook on the McBride Institute page, also on my YouTube page, do one-on-one coaching. I also have a book, Healing in Hindsight. You can click the link in my bio to get access to that as well. That just my full life experiences, all the different trauma that I had to unpack, had to address, how I had to deal with it, and then different strategies I've learned to empower myself to reach the point in which I'm at. So that's all the places you can find me and the things in which I do. I
Love
appreciate
it,
you having
love
me,
it.
bro.
No, absolutely. This has been day 27 of the 31 Days of Power book, you all. I'm going to be back on live at 12:30 with California State University Dominguez Hills Gear Up page here on IG. I'm speaking for their student group tomorrow, closing off Mental Health Awareness Month. So you all are more than welcome to drop in on that conversation and listen. It's going to be real brief, so if you see me live, that's why. And then today at 1:30 Pacific time, you all, I'll actually be going live with my church, a Seattle church, and my homegirl, Tati Singh, as we talk about mental health in church, right? Church and mental health, faith and mental health. And we're going to be coming from the 31 Days of Power book with that as well. So that'll be at 1:30 Pacific today. Man, and I'm looking forward to having some greater conversations with my brother Chris McBride here, man. I can't wait till I get you and these other cats from around the space connected to, man. Like I just know the richness and the jewels that are going to come from these convos. So, hey, much love to you,
And I
bro. Have
also
a
want
great.
to just give you your flowers real quick too, bro. I seen a post that you had hit over 1,500 sales within your book, bro. And I,
Oh,
as an author, I want to just give you your flowers, give you your
hey,
props, say I'm proud of you, bro. Keep up
I
the hustle. That's
appreciate that,
dope,
man.
bro.
I appreciate that, bro. I'm serious. That means a lot to me because truthfully, this book almost didn't happen last year. It was around this time last year when my people's, were feeling all of the stuff that we've been putting up with the carousels. I was like, man, this is great. And my boy LV, who did the carousels, he was like, bro, I think this needs to be your next book. And man, literally first 2 days of June, 3 days of no, end of May, first 2 days of June, I was writing. Floyd got killed last year on the 25th. And I think unconsciously went into a slump where I just lost the motivation to write. Like I was doing videos and I was still putting content out, but I just couldn't focus. So I appreciate that, man, because I think for me, it took me about 6 months to pick the pen back up to start writing again. And even as I wrote it, imposter syndrome set in because I'm like, man, what makes you qualified to talk about this? Even though you've lived through the vast majority of this, even though you've overcome it, what makes you think that people are going to care, right? And
How many
so,
people
man, I
have hit you up who's bought the book and read it and been like, "Yo, bro, thank you for writing it," and I'm genuinely interested in.
a whole heck of a lot. I'll put it like that, man. A whole
Ain't
heck of a
that
lot.
crazy though, bro? Where you
Yeah,
could doubt,
yeah,
this is probably not good. Maybe let me not even put this project out. And yet
yeah.
and still, that's how, bro, it's like following purpose, bro. That's why I appreciate you for actually having the initiative to fight through that little slump and actually put it out because again, we never know who we're actually blessing, bro. So I appreciate you
Yeah.
doing that. And again, just even the example of me seeing it like, damn, 1500, oh, okay, bro, out here doing that's so you never
And
know who
part
you're
of it,
inspiring, bro.
obviously, is the marketing piece is just kind of pushing it, man. But two, I mean, man, a lot of my sales don't come from single sales, man. These colleges, man, and that's the thing too. I will say is that I think, it's funny we talk about the fruits of our labor. The Bible speaks on the fruits of your labor a lot, and that was one of the things for me, honestly, bro, is that I realized that a lot of the people who are purchasing it, whether it be colleges or corporate doing these bulk orders and stuff, man, the heartache that came from being an early entrepreneur 10 years ago, having to be broke, and man, that's a whole nother conversation in itself, right? Because that brings a wealth of emotions with it too. But I'm like, man, staying consistent, doing good business, and staying in good relationships with people. Man, they hear your voice, they trust your voice, they trust you. And so it's been a culmination of all of that. So I say all of that to say thank you, man, because I didn't think that the book would do what it would. And it's only been 4 months. I think that's the craziest part. Is like, yo, this has been 4 months. Now, hear me, I get it. New York Times bestseller, author on that list and all that. This might not be a lot to them per se. But I'm
We
like,
ain't
man, when
comparing
you talk,
ourselves to others.
that's what I'm like, we never right. And I'm like, but the reality is when you consider where you are and where I am in my space right now, I'm like, for somebody who don't have all of that and is working with what they got, hey, this ain't a bad start. And we gonna keep on moving.
Facts.
We're
I
gonna
had
keep
read a
on
quote the
moving.
other day that said the sun doesn't measure its worth based upon the shadow that it casts. So,
Mm,
the shade that it throws on others and all that stuff like that, it doesn't get its self-worth from that.
nope.
So, yeah, bro, we just comparing ourselves to who we were yesterday. Compared to who we were yesterday, that's
Absolutely.
a
I
big,
love
big.
that.
So, that's
I
congratulations,
love
bro. I'm
that.
proud of you.
Thank you,
And I'm
bro.
looking
Much love.
forward to you getting hopefully that's builds the confidence to future endeavors and future projects because like you said, you never know the influx of people that's going to be like, thank you for putting that out because that really changed my life. So all the other stuff
Seriously.
that's in you, bro, I'm looking forward to you getting it out.
I appreciate that, my man. So yeah, much love, bro. I'm gonna get out of here. Sure, we gotta take care of the physical health, and it looks like we're about to get a downforce, and your boy might be running in the rain today, but it's all good. It's all good. We gotta make it happen. No excuses, right?
Thanks.
Hey, much love to you, bro. So check my man Chris out, McBride Institute, YouTube, Rising Tide Podcast, basically everywhere podcasts can be heard. And yeah, man, I'll hit you up soon. But thank
All
you all
right,
to
bro.
everybody who stayed tuned with us as well. You're not losing in life. You're not failing. You're simply between the dream. We will talk to you soon. Peace.